Jarraian, ikuspegi global eta estrategiko batetik emango diegu jardunaldiko hitzaldiei hasiera. Gaur egungo testuinguru ekonomiko eta geopolitiko aldakor honetan, lehiakortasuna nola ulertu eta eraiki daiteken gogoetagai hartuta. Horretarako, plazer bada Stephan Garelli gurekin izatea, nazioarteko lehiakortasunaren arloan erreferente dena. Elkarrizketa formatuan izango da bere saioa, James Wilson, Orkestra Lehiakortasuneko Euskal Institutuko zuzendari nagusi denak gidatuta. Beraz, James eta Stephan, zuena da hitza. Eskerrik asko.
Eskerrik asko, Aitziber. Egun ondo guztioi. Good morning, Stephan. My name's James Wilson. I'm Director of Orchestra at the Basque Institute of Competitiveness. And it's a huge pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you this morning as a leading world authority on competitiveness. For those of you in the room here, I can see Stephan here, but I'm going to talk also to the room to introduce you. Stephan is founder of the IMD World Competitiveness Center, one of the leading center of analysis of competitiveness in the world that produces many of the rankings that we study of countries, things like the talent ranking as well, moving into new issues that are particularly relevant for our competitiveness. Stephan's also Professor Emeritus of World Competitiveness at IMD, one of the world's leading business schools where he continues to teach, and he's Professor Emeritus also at the University of Lausanne. His career has been very closely linked to different fields of business, from financial institutions to leading newspapers in Switzerland. He's also former managing director of the World Economic Forum, and for many years organized the annual events in Davos, which we all read about and hear about each year. And alongside lots of other things, the curriculum is very long. Stephan's also a member of the International Olympic Commission for Sustainability and Legacy, and we could go on and on. But a pleasure to have you here, Stephan. Many thanks for being here with us on a very rainy morning in San Sebastian. But we have a lovely view of the city from up here, and we can see you there at IMD. The conference this morning wants to explore the relationship between competitiveness and community, the things which you've written and thought and reflected very much about. But we want to start with a global outlook, thinking a little bit about the changes that we're seeing in our understanding of globalization. There's a lot of talk at the moment about a new phase of globalization. What distinguishes that, Stephan? What we'd like to hear first of all from you about your thoughts on this new phase of globalization, if there is one. What distinguishes it from the past phase that we've become accustomed to over the last 20, 30 years?
Thank you very much, James, and good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I can assure you the weather in Switzerland is absolutely similar to the weather that you have here. It's a rainy, snowy day and everything. It also gave me the opportunity to know more about the region and about Gishua. And listening to the presentation before, I can only agree to whatever was said there. So I don't want to repeat too much about that, but to respond to your question. We had a unique period of time for 40 years where the world was totally open, starting in 1978 with the open door policy of China and finishing with the COVID crisis in 2019. So we were in a situation where the world was so open, we could travel everywhere, we could invest everywhere, we could trade everywhere. And the first consequences of it is that in this kind of environment, size was not a constraint anymore. It means that whatever be the size of the country, the region, of the company, you could play the game of globalization. And it was a unique period of time, and unfortunately it came to an end for many reasons. The first one was, of course, the COVID crisis. The second one is when you have an open environment, you have vulnerability. And there was a sense of vulnerability a bit everywhere, which was not only on an economic basis, but socially also. People felt, we have competition, and competition is going to destroy our work, etc. So we are entering a phase of fragmented environment, economy, where the world is, in my opinion, still global, but in addition, the rules of the games are not global anymore. We are going to see industrial policies everywhere. For example, you will not be able to travel with the same credit card everywhere. the payment system will be in parallel. All this is going to change. And in this type of environment, smaller nations like yours or like mine in Switzerland have more difficulties because this is an environment where the big countries are going to impose their rules. We are back to empires, and the large one, China, the US, etc. And Henry Kissinger, in a book called Diplomacy, summarized that very well when he said, you know, actually, empires are not interested in the international system. They want to be themselves the international systems. So they will want to impose on us their own rules. And in this kind of environment, and I know you have additional questions, James, in this kind of environment, I think the real question is for smaller nations like yours and mine, how can we succeed? And I like very much what you have said, which means it has to be in line with our community values. I think community values is an asset. Social peace, if I can put it that way, is an enormous asset. And we can discuss how to achieve it if you want, James.
Thank you, Stephan. You've responded there with a very wide-ranging and fascinating view of the changes that we're starting to see, and as you were saying, we're going to see more and more. I want to pick a bit more out this issue of the fragmentation that you mentioned. We're moving towards a more fragmented global economy. I think we can all see elements of that starting to appear. Does that mean that that the world economy is becoming regionalized in blocks? What are going to be the main kind of structures that shape how we interact within those blocks, and how can small countries like ourselves maneuver ourselves within those blocks?
Thank you. I can assure you we have exactly the same questions here in Switzerland. So we are thinking about that all the time. Yeah, I think we are going to have a multi-layer environment. Still, we are going to have a multilateral organization, global, like the World Trade Organization, where decisions have to be taken unanimously and globally. Then we have a second level, which are bilateral agreements. We are going to see more and more country-to-country, block-to-block agreements. If you take a country like China, they have 29 bilateral agreements today around the world. But what is interesting for us, smaller nation now, is that we see more and more ad hoc coalitions, which mean that we are making a coalition with countries or regions which are very much like us, whether it's smaller nations or we share the same belief in liberal democracy, or we want to join in spending defense or artificial intelligence project together. I think we see a lot now of this kind of variable geometry type of coalitions, which are taking place beyond the traditional institutions, because the name of the game today is to go fast. It's fast-track decision-making. We cannot wait for large organizations to agree when you have 170 people in the room. This is just not possible. And for smaller regions like yours and mine, we need to find people where we have the same mindset, you know, the same way of looking at the world. And maybe we can do a lot of coalition that way without necessarily relying on large global institutions.
Okay, so I understand we're talking about kind of looking for almost like-mindedness, other places in the
Exactly.
world that have a similar thinking, a similar way of doing, etc. In terms of, and we can build our relationships around those types of more bilateral relationships. There's a lot of talk in Europe at the moment around within this changing context around concepts like strategic autonomy and the need to kind of develop more security in our economic relationships. How does that fit in with this new scenario? What do you see as important for, again, small countries like ourselves in terms of developing the strategic relationships we need so that our supply chains, our competitiveness is not threatened by changes in geopolitical relationships?
I think the name of the game is to be able to multiply those type of relationship, whether it is one-to-one or whether it is with a small coalition of people who are thinking like us. For example, today there is a coalition in the making of smaller nations initiated by Singapore, the United Arab Emirates, and everybody else who would like to join and say, you know, we are small, but we are interested in an open world environment. We are interested in trading and investing more freely. And I think that within this context and within your strategy about social cohesion, which I think is very important, the fact that we have to have a strong community. I always like to say, you know, big trees have big roots. In somehow you cannot avoid that. I think that one of the key things we are seeing in competitive smaller nations is a very powerful and very efficient administration. If you take my country, what do you have in common between a private banker in Geneva and a farmer somewhere in the mountain in Switzerland? They don't speak the same language. They don't have the same religion. They are so different, except for one thing. They are all under the same efficient administration. And I think that this is a glue that takes competitiveness on one side, whether it is local or global, and the local community, the sense of well-being that you have been talking about. And this is what makes it work. And if you are looking at the countries that are successful, smaller, like Singapore, the United Arab Emirates, and so on, even ours, every time you see a very competitive administration, very lean, very efficient, and which makes the link between the business community and the people.
Mm-hmm. So administrations, governments have a key role to play in terms of making sure that they are efficient, lean, and adapting to this continual changing scenario. What about business itself? In the face of the kind of geopolitical tensions, inflation, technological changes, rapid technological disruptions, how are businesses adapting to this? And what new traits should businesses develop in this scenario in order to maintain their competitiveness and maintain that rooting in the places where they're based?
I think that you have to have a very sound balance. You have a very strong industrial base, but also everything which is about service and new technology is important. The second thing which I find is important is that the business community also has a very external view also of the competitiveness of the region, which means traveling, looking at what is happening elsewhere, multiplying business contacts, etc., in order to exchange ideas. You mentioned that before, but not only locally, but also with the rest of the world. I think personal contacts are extremely important in order to make sure that you are staying relevant with the type of environment which is happening, because it is going so quick that unless you go yourself and experience it, you will never realize what is happening. Don't rely too much on professors. Don't rely too much on analysis, etc. Go, travel, experience it, multiply maybe some business delegation here and there. I think we have found that to be extremely important because people, especially in the business community, they learn if they experience it and if they exchange ideas with other business leaders elsewhere. This is, in my opinion, crucial.
So there's a lot of learning, a kind of a continual interaction.
I don't hear you anymore.
You don't hear me?
Now I hear you. Go ahead.
Great. So I was saying you're talking about a learning process, essentially, continuing yes. with this kind of bilateral learning, which I guess is not so different to the kind of globalization processes we've seen until now. It's perhaps the context around it is changing, moving back to what you initially said about, you know, kind of like-mindedness, trying to find the right connections within that new scenario. You've also, when thinking about the connection between economic competitiveness and broader societal well-being or goals, etc., you've written about the hybrid company in various of your works, one that tries to reconcile profitability with social and environmental responsibility. How does that work in practice? What does that imply for businesses changing their practices to move towards that hybrid economy? Is that part of the solution to this new stage of globalization? How do we do it in practice?
The good news is that it is part of the solution. The bad news is that it is horribly difficult to manage. It means that we are in an environment where the hybrid company, is multidimensional. online, offline, local, global, etc. This is a nightmare. On the other hand, it has to be done. And it has to be done for a very simple reason, is that the mindset, the value system of the younger generation has changed. They are looking at companies in a way that they want companies to be aligned with their own value system. And their value system is changing. And if we don't adapt in companies with the value system of the next generation, we will not be able to attract the best talents. And I think this is something which is absolutely crucial. And it's not only at a level of the talents at university level or at a higher level. Apprenticeship is enormously important. We need to make sure that there is no barriers between the new companies and the younger people which are coming in. Whether they have a diploma or not, you don't care. You want them to go through a system where they can be employable. I think the term employable is very important. And that's why the hybrid company is important, because it has to be global if it wants, but it has to stay very close to the mindset, to the value system of the people. And those mindset is changing, and we have to accept that, and we have to adapt to that. And I think that one of the way is, of course, the apprenticeship system, which help the younger generation to step in the world of work.
I think that that's a really interesting point, the issue of talent. Talent is something that here in the Basque Country we talk about a lot and have done over the last, I would say, 5 years in an increasing kind of crescendo of talk around the importance of talent and talent attraction. Is it just about companies, or what can places do to try and help companies make that link between the changing value systems of young people and also the types of things that people are looking for in a place to live and a place to work? What are the types of conditions that we need to create to help that happen?
I think that in the introduction you said something which I think is very correct. A lot of people are saying, okay, competitiveness, but why? Why should I be competitive? What is in it for me? And there was an interesting answer which was given one day by the former Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, and he said, whenever we have a success, we need to show to the people the tangible result of this success. And he said for his country, in terms of infrastructure, hospital, better school, better education, better anything that represents something in the daily life of people. People want to see the tangible results of all the efforts they are doing. And sometimes we are very bad at explaining. I'm not speaking about you, I'm speaking about us. We are very bad at explaining the tangible result of a good economy. People want to see, is the road better? Is the education for my children better? Are the hospital facilities better? The vast majority of the people, they are looking about that. If you talk to them about export performance, if you talk to them about balance of payments or balance of trade, it doesn't mean anything. Even a budget deficit now in many countries doesn't mean anything, because they say, we shall see later what will happen. So we need to have a way of explaining to people what are the tangible good results of competitiveness for their well-being and for their own daily life.
I think that's, again, a fascinating point, and I think I can see a link between what you're saying and between a lot of the discourse at the moment around the rise of populism in parts of Europe, and perhaps the difficulties that political parties are having in explaining the impacts of different things and making tangible the results. So it's about giving back, I suppose, in a way that in a way that's obvious and that's tangible. Coming back to the overall theme of the event, we're going to have several. We're going to move on this morning to talk in much more detail about this link between competitiveness and community. And as Unai Andueza, Minister for Economic Development, mentioned, he raised a very pertinent question: how can we preserve the community values that we have here in Gipuzkoa, in the Basque Country, without without undermining our competitiveness. Is that a real trade-off, or are there synergies there? How do you see the link between community, strong community, and strong competitiveness in practice?
I think the link is very strong. I would even say that you cannot be competitive if you do not have a strong sense of community and value system, for a very simple reason. People will invest or will trade with a nation only if there is social cohesion, which means in the long run stability and predictability. That is what people are looking at. If you go into a country where they say, and I've seen a lot of them, we are making a lot of strategies to attract investment, to be competitive, etc. And then the strategy is changing every 6 months, or the people are not aligned with what is happening. The business community, which has very often a long-term perspective, I mean, long-term in business is 3 years, they are saying, I'm not going to go in a country which is changing direction all the time. I think what is absolutely essential in business when they are looking at anybody, any country, is to have a sense of predictability, and is to have at least tell me what are the rules of the game and make them stable. Once I know them, I will play along that and I will be successful. If you take China, when they opened up, it was not a very business-friendly environment, but it was very clear. The government said, this you can do and this you cannot do because we have to preserve our own community, our own values. And they stick to it. And then people, they understood, they say, this we can do, this we cannot do. So I think the two are very much linked. And I think that a strong sense of community is actually a very big asset in competitiveness. And sometimes it's overlooked, but we should not do that.
Okay, thank you, Stephan. So taking your message there, the community is like an anchor in a way, an anchor for business and competitiveness that can mutually strengthen one another as we go forward. I think we can build on that this morning, and I can see that clock ticking down now. So we'll wrap up the conversation for now. But I'd like to thank you hugely on behalf of everybody here in the Tabacalera Culture Center in San Sebastián for your really important insights, which have set the scene beautifully for the discussions we're going to continue to have this morning over the next couple of hours. So thank you very much, Stephan.
Thank you very much, Jem, and thank you very much for inviting me, and good luck to all of you.
Thank you.